This video aims to describe what genetic engineering involves. Now, scientists can actually remove a gene from one organism and insert it into the DNA of another organism. This process is called genetic engineering. One example of this is inserting the gene coding for human insulin into bacterial plasmid DNA. The genetically modified bacteria can then make the human insulin, which can be used by people to treat diabetes. The bacteria are now known as genetically modified organisms. Now, the diagram on the screen is showing you how a bacterium can be genetically modified in order to produce human insulin. First thing that needs to be done is to obtain the gene or the section of DNA that codes for insulin production. We'd get that from a human pancreatic cell, so a cell from the pancreas. We would then get a bacterium that contains a plasmid. Now, a plasmid is just a loop of DNA that's found within many bacterial cells. We would take that plasmid out of the bacterial cell and cut it with an enzyme. This is done using a certain group of enzymes called restriction enzymes. We would then insert the human insulin gene into that plasmid. That plasmid can then be inserted into the bacterium. We would then put that bacterium in a fermenter. This is like a big flask that has optimal conditions for bacterial growth. It will probably have the right temperature, the right pH, the right oxygen levels, the correct CO2 levels. The bacteria will divide and reproduce. And all the bacteria that are produced will all contain that human insulin gene. And all the bacteria will then produce the human insulin, which can be extracted, purified, and be used to help treat diabetes. We can also genetically modify plants. For example, producing a golden rice. Here we have normal rice, and here we have golden rice. Golden rice plants are just normal rice plants that have had 2 extra genes inserted, so they make beta-carotene in the grains. Now, beta-carotene is needed by humans to produce vitamin A. A lack of vitamin A can cause death because the immune system does not work properly, and it can also lead to blindness. However, some people are concerned that genetically modified rice will crossbreed with wild rice plants and contaminate wild rice DNA. Others worry that eating genetically modified organisms might harm people. However, there's no actual evidence of this. Other people might say that levels of beta-carotene in golden rice are not high enough to actually make much difference to children's health. Also, these genetically modified organisms can also be quite expensive to buy. And some are also made that they don't produce fertile seed, so farmers have to buy new seed each year. Scientists have also added genes to make some plants herbicide resistant. This can reduce the amount of crop spraying needed because the farmer can use one much heavier spray of herbicide rather than several smaller doses. There may be a couple of drawbacks, however, including the development of herbicide resistant weeds, as cross-pollination with wild plants might take place. There may also be a loss of biodiversity, as fewer weeds survive, meaning loss of food and shelter for animals. For the exam, you will need to be able to describe how to create a genetically modified organism, such as that bacterium producing insulin, and also be able to evaluate the advantages and disadvantages of genetically modified crops.